The secret I carried for 12 years. My name is Marin. I'm 34 years old and I live in a quiet suburb outside Portland, Oregon. I've been married to a wonderful man named Grant for 12 years. He's 41. I work as a nurse, spending my days caring for people at their most fragile moments. Grant and I have a son together, Eli. He just turned 11. Grant loves Eli and me more than anything in this world. He is patient, he is kind, he is everything a father should be. He trusts me completely. But I have been living with a secret so heavy it has followed me into every quiet moment of my life. And if Grant ever found out the truth, it would break him beyond repair. Before Grant, there was someone else. His name was Dean. Dark hair, green eyes, and a smile that made me feel like the only person in the world. I was 24 when we fell in love. He was my first real love, the kind you don't think you'll survive losing. We told each other everything, our dreams, our fears, the future we thought we'd share. We believed nothing could separate us, but our families disagreed. They came from different backgrounds, different faiths, and neither side would bend. One day, without warning, Dean walked away. He broke my heart into pieces I didn't think could be put back together. I cried for weeks. I never told my parents the real reason why. They just wanted to see me smile again. That's when they introduced me to Grant. He was steady where Dean had been uncertain. He had a good job, a good name, a future you could actually plan around. My parents adored him instantly, so I said yes. I tried to move forward, to bury what I felt for Dean somewhere deep enough that it wouldn't resurface, but it never fully left me. And worse, I never completely cut Dean out of my life. We still talked quietly, every so often. Years into my marriage, Dean and I crossed paths again. We talked about the past, about what could have been. That night, I felt lonelier than I had in years, and I made a choice I can never take back. It was only one night, but one night was enough to change everything. Weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. When I told Grant, his whole face lit up. He wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "We're finally going to be parents." I smiled back at him, but inside I was terrified because I truly didn't know, whether the baby was his or Dean's. I said nothing. I let Grant believe fully and completely that this child was his, and he loved that idea with his whole heart. He came to every single appointment. He held my hand through every hour of labor. When our son was born, Grant cried tears of pure joy. I cried too, but not only from happiness. I cried because of the truth I was burying deeper with every passing second. Grant raised Eli like his entire world revolved around him. He changed every diaper, warmed every bottle, read him a story every single night without fail. Eli adored him back just as fiercely. Watching them together should have filled me with peace. Instead, it filled me with quiet, constant guilt. I thought about confessing more times than I can count, but fear always won. What if Grant left? What if Eli lost the only father he had ever known? Dean, meanwhile, vanished from our lives completely. He married someone else and moved on, and I kept living inside the lie I had built. Years passed. We raised Eli together, wrapped in a love that, on the surface, looked whole. Then everything cracked open in a single afternoon. Eli was riding his bike outside our house when he was hit by a car. We rushed him to the emergency room, bleeding and in desperate need of a transfusion. The doctors asked Grant to donate blood. Then they came back with a question that stopped my heart. "Are you certain you're his biological father?" Grant's face went pale with confusion. I froze completely. That night, we sat across from each other in silence until I finally told him everything. About Dean, about that one night, about the lie I had carried for over a decade. I begged for forgiveness through my tears. Grant didn't yell. He just sat there, and I watched something in him break quietly. He finally looked at me and said, "I gave that boy everything, my name, my love, my whole life, and you gave me a lie." His voice barely rose above a whisper, but every word landed like a blow. I tried to explain that I had been lost, broken, that it was a mistake I never meant to make. He didn't answer. A week later, the school called. Eli had gotten into a fight. Another kid had told him, "That's not even your real dad." Eli hit him. When Grant asked why, Eli said simply, "Because he lied. You're my real dad." The pain had reached our son, and it shattered me completely. That same day, while I waited outside the school to pick Eli up, a car pulled up beside me. A man stepped out. It was Dean. My heart stopped. He walked straight toward me, looked past me at Eli, and said, "Marin, I know he's mine. Give me back my son." I couldn't speak. How did he know? Dean didn't wait for an answer. That night, he showed up at our house and spoke directly to Grant. He said he wanted a DNA test. He said he wanted custody. He said he had rights. Grant stood there in silence, barely beginning to forgive me, and now facing this. Dean told Grant he had been watching us for a while, that the moment he saw Eli, he simply knew. He was furious, and he said he'd see us in court. Grant just stood there, holding a photograph of Eli like it was the only solid thing left in the room. Dean called his lawyer that night. I was trapped between two men and one child. One man carried the blood, the other had carried the years. Dean wanted to prove a fact. Grant had already lived the truth. A DNA test was arranged. Dean filed the legal paperwork, and soon we were standing in a courtroom watching my entire life come undone in front of strangers. I wanted so badly to protect Eli, but it was already too late. Everything was exposed now for everyone to see. In court, Dean presented his evidence, messages, photographs, and the DNA results. The judge listened carefully. Dean asked for full custody. Grant had no paperwork proving biology, but he had something else entirely. He stood up and said, "I taught him to ride a bike. I bandaged his knees. I read to him every night of his life. I am his father in every way that has ever mattered." The judge turned to me. I knew it was my turn to speak. My hands were shaking as I stood. "Yes," I said, "Dean is his biological father, but Grant is his real father in every sense that matters." I told the judge that Grant had been there for every milestone. The first word, the first step, every fever in the middle of the night. Dean had been there for one night and then he was gone. Grant had been there for everything else. I admitted, in front of everyone, that I had made a terrible mistake, but that Grant never had. He had given his love, his time, his entire life to our son. The courtroom went completely silent. Dean lowered his head. After a long pause, the judge spoke. "Custody remains with the man who raised this child." Dean walked out without another word. Grant reached over and took my hand. He didn't say anything, but that touch carried more hope than words ever could. For the first time in months, I felt a small piece of peace return to my chest. Grant and I started therapy together. We talked through the past, faced the pain head on instead of running from it. He told me he still loved me, but that he needed time to heal, and I understood completely. We cried more than once, together and apart. Eli didn't understand everything that had happened, but he understood that we were trying, really trying, to stay a family. Slowly, piece by piece, we began to heal. I cooked his favorite meals again. He started smiling more. We took walks in the evening like we used to. The love didn't come back all at once, but it came back. It wasn't easy, and it still isn't some days. But we kept choosing each other again and again. Grant looked at Eli one evening and said, "No matter what, I am your father." And in that moment, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild everything we had almost lost. Today, we're still healing. Grant is still here, Eli is happy, and I no longer carry secrets. I learned, the hardest way possible, that lies can break even the strongest hearts, but that the truth, however painful, can heal what seemed unfixable. Grant forgave me. It remains the greatest gift I have ever been given. We live in the truth now. Eli knows his story, and he knows, without question, that he is loved. When I look at Grant, I see strength. When I look at Eli, I see hope. Our family isn't perfect, but it's real, and that is enough. If you were in Grant's place, if you discover the child you raised with your whole heart didn't share your blood, would you walk away or would you stay for love? Tell me in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.